I'm Nick Hughes, and this is Founders Live Conversations. But hey, Justin, want to welcome you. How you doing?
I am blessed to be here. Thanks so much, Nick, for inviting me.
Absolutely. I think, actually, what I would like you to do first is just give us a little bio and background of yourself, and then we'll just kind of jump into this like entrepreneurial conversation and learn about yourself.
Sure. So a bio about me. The first time I ever went through sales training, I was actually 13. My parents just bought a Sandler training franchise, which is a big sales training organization. And I'm listening to my dad's tapes, and he's like, hey, and we lived an hour outside of town. So we're listening, and I was like, Dad, what do you do? And he said, let me show you. So between 8th and 9th grade, I had a sweet clip-on tie. That was the first time I went through sales training. Fast forward, went to college. After college, joined the company, became an owner. 2 years ago, I left sales training to start my own adventure. And that's actually Nick, where I first found Founders Live, is I got invited to be a speaker at the Boise Founders Live event with my previous company. So I went all in with this company. I was around live events, and we invested our life savings, and it fell flat on its face. It was the best learning experience I've ever had. But I picked myself up and went back to what I really knew, which was sales, and started again. So I started Prospecting Done For You. And what I do is I help businesses get their message in front of their ideal clients. Because frankly, I love selling. And when it comes to fulfillment, that's where I lack. So I figured, how could I sell selling? And that's what I created. So that's a little background on who I am and what I did.
Awesome. That's a great story. And, definitely want to dive in more. So I've been traveling a lot and I've met a lot of people. I was in Boise, beginning of 2019. Were you there? We had an event at Trailhead. Were you there?
Yeah, that's where I was.
Okay,
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I know that, I know we had connected, the last year and a half has been a blur.
Right.
So, tell us a little bit more about, what drove you to start a business in sales specifically, and what is it about that really grips you and you think that you can bring value to the market?
Sure. So when I left the sales training world, I figured I've been teaching people how to sell and grow their business. Our ideal clients were small business owners doing between $2 and $10 million in revenue. I've been teaching them, helping them. You can only work with those kind of people for so long before you're like, all right, I'm going to go do it myself. So that's why I left. My first business, I made every mistake in the book. My biggest mistake, which any of you founders out there, I would highly encourage you to avoid this. I started by charging way too little. So you're familiar with the concept of like a value ladder. Mm-hmm. You're trying to get people to the top of the ladder. So what I did in that first business is I started with a virtual event that was free, but if you wanted to pay $100, I'd give you the recordings. And then I sold a ticket for $300 to my live event. And at that live event, I was going to sell a $25,000 coaching package, right? And funny thing, we actually sold a coaching package direct without going through the value ladder, which helped us a ton. But when it came to the virtual event, we invested all in. We invested about $100,000, and we made $8,000. We made $8,000, and it was like, oh. So that is the biggest mistake I made. I made plenty of others, don't get me wrong, but that right there is where I was like, if I can help people avoid this mistake, it will change the world.
So let's stay on that for a second. okay, you learn that you charge too little. What is the best process to actually find the best price point to then charge so that you make a profit, but it's not too high that people don't engage? How do you go about that?
A great question. So the first thing you've got to think about is, what is the problem I'm solving, right? As entrepreneurs or budding entrepreneurs, most people say, I am never going to trade time for money again. You ever heard that, right?
Yeah.
And that, when I got started, that was my whole mission. I'm going to build a scalable business, a business that I don't have to do everything in. And so I go down this path of building the scalable business. The problem is I stopped trading time for money and started trading time for no money. It sucks, right? It's way worse than trading time for money. So the first thing I did when I pivoted was I went, how can I trade my time for money and solve a problem that people need help solving, right? So look at your skill set. And if you guys would just chat in, what kind of businesses are you building? Well, I'll try and use some of your businesses examples. But you look at your skill set, what are you great at? And that's what you want to build a business around, right? When it comes to determining price, the first thing you've got to do as a business is figure out what problem are you solving, right? And then figure out, what do you need to charge to be profitable? So it's a conundrum, but it is way easier to sell $10,000 than $1,000. And it's easier to sell a $100,000 product or service than a $10,000 product or service.
So I want to ask you right there. I've heard that many times and I generally agree with it, but I've never really understood why that is. And allow me to take a one stab, and then I'm curious your thoughts. My stab is that the higher price point, basically, I mean, you're actually attacking a bigger problem, and probably a more dire problem. So if it's a $10,000 neighborhood, that company is, you know, they need to pay for that because it is a dire issue for their business, versus $500 or $1,000 is probably just not a big enough fire to pay attention to. But, you know, dive into that a little bit more.
Love to. So one of the main reasons is you've got to understand what you sell. So my company is Prospecting Done For You. I am selling a done for you solution. That means I'm selling time, because anything I do for them, they don't have to do. When you're selling, let's say you're selling a coaching package or a course, right? That is a do-it-yourself product or service. You've got to get them to give up their time, which is way harder than just giving up their money. So when you charge more, people expect more. I would much rather, if I'm building out a website and if I have the money, I'd rather pay $20,000 than $5,000, because I know the team that's working for the $20,000 is going to be putting everything into it. Whereas, let me ask you this. Have you ever had a client or prospect call and you look at the phone and you think, oh my gosh, what do they want, right? That right there is an indicator that you charge way too little, right? If they're paying you $1 million a month, it could be 1 a.m. and they want to know what you had for lunch. You'd be like, sure, let's chat. I'm happy to do it, right? So that's the first thing I look at when I say, what do you sell? Is how can you sell time?
Yeah.
That's the easiest thing to sell. So I see someone's in recruiting and consulting, right? If you're getting started, and that was Allison. Hi, Allison. If you're getting started in that niche, the first thing you want to do is create your own job. So go to a company that's getting started. You know they have the problem, And instead of saying, here, I'll teach you what to do, say, listen, instead of going out and hiring a consultant or hiring a company and paying per head, pay me a flat fee of $3,000 a month, and I will be your in-house recruiter. Because right now, and Allison, I'm sorry, I'm assuming you're getting started. If that's not true, my apologies and bad example. But right now,
Allison, feel free to jump in.
Oh yeah,
and,
so I actually already do that. So
awesome, that's great. And so the first thing you do when you get started is create your own job, where you get to control the time. And the best thing about being an entrepreneur is you get to work any 90 hours a week you pick. Like, it's totally time freedom, right? So that's one of the things when it comes to working with people and building your business, is you've got to understand, how do I first create a business? So my first problem, my first issue in that company was I tried to build a scalable business before I had a business. And building a scalable business, well, it's important to keep that end goal in mind. If you start there, you'll never get to the business to scale it.
I love that statement, and saying it slightly differently. Some people on here might have, I've said it a number of times, and then I basically took this from, I think it was Paul Graham from Y Combinator, and a lot of people talked about this, but basically, another way to say what Justin just said is, please, over deliver for like 10 people first, and learn why they're loving your product or service, and then move to like a larger number, 50 or 100, and see, like, you're meeting their needs, you're over delivering, you are profitable on those, then you grow it. And I think, I don't know, if you're like me, it's hard because you're probably like already thinking on such a high scale, and you're building something that doesn't necessarily make sense. And if you, in terms of profitability, and if you scale too quickly on an unprofitable model, it's harder to rework that to like start getting the economics correct. So counterintuitive, but really do focus on, have an eye on scale, but have an eye on, the economics and profitability right now. So good. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah, no, it is so key. And the other thing I want to encourage you, what kind of price points are you guys all selling at? Like, just ballpark, where is your offering?
So let's do this. How about, let's go Shelly. Shelly says connecting businesses to their clients and leads to build return customers and referrals. Shelly, feel free to jump in and let us know maybe your general neighborhood of price point if you would like. If not, it's okay, but we definitely are interested.
So mine are all tech products that are low cost value to my clients. And they go on to subscription.
Okay, awesome. So more SaaS models.
I don't know what SaaS is, but sure.
Okay.
Yeah, SaaS would be, generally we call it software as a service. So it's just subscription, you get a recurring revenue every month.
Yep. Exactly.
Yep. Awesome. So when it comes to what you sell, look at your price point as a percentage of your client's revenue. So for example, I've done coaching a lot, right? I have sold to people who make under $100,000 in revenue. And I'm selling a $1,000 a month package. What percentage of revenue am I asking?
Yeah, I've got several cut out. But
right? That's 12%. Whereas if I go to a company that's at $1 million, I can sell that same package and it's only 1.2%. So make sure when you're picking your ideal client, who is it that you really, really want to serve? don't pick someone. Whenever I'm working with someone, I tell them, don't pick someone who's making under $1 million in revenue, because it becomes so hard to justify a large investment in your services, in your products. So like Shelly, I love the SaaS model. There's a ton of business to be done in SaaS. When you're getting started, it is the hardest business to get started, because generally it costs 10 times to start as it does to produce, right? So you've got that negative ROI. Does that make sense? So you got to be careful. Now, that being said, you can do affiliate marketing. You can refer other SaaS products as part of your business model, which, if that's the case, have another source of income, right? You've got to have something to, the first goal, like after my first business failed, I looked at what do I need to do? And I realized I've got to feed my family. So my number one goal was feed my family, right? I started there. And then I figured out, okay, now how can I build more of a business around just selling my time? Now I'm at the point where I'm looking at, okay, I'm outsourcing stuff. I've got a team doing the deliverables. How do I scale it? How do I take it to the next level? And if you try to jump those steps, it works if you get venture capital, or if you're independently wealthy and don't need money and have that kind of runway. But most businesses fail for one of two reasons. They run out of time, or they run out of money.
Yep.
Usually it's not they run out of time.
Yeah. Justin, this is great. Thank you so much. Question I had around really getting started on even a sales process. Let's say, the people that are in this right now are maybe watching, there's various different businesses and industries here, but, walk us through how a company would start to establish their sales process and building the pipeline. And then what does that process look like in a general sense?
Sure. So I love the question. When it comes to a sales process, the first thing you've got to identify is who is the perfect client that you want to work with. So when it comes to my business, I'm looking for people who sell a product or service that is $30,000 plus. Their lifetime value of a client is $250,000 plus. They've got a long sales cycle that's typically complex, and they've got high paid salary plus commission salespeople. So they're paying their salespeople, say, $100,000 a year plus commission. So when it comes to hiring a service like mine, it's like, you mean I can pay you to do the dirty work that nobody wants to do anyway, and you'll feed my sales guy? Of course, right? It becomes that no-brainer. So first thing in any sales process is, if you don't know who you're targeting, I am telling you, if you don't know who you're targeting, you are wasting so much money. Because here's what happens. Please, never, I don't want to insult anybody, but never, under any circumstance, say my ideal client is everybody. Because
right.
They aren't. One of the things I look for is, how do you like paying bills?
On time.
Right? On time. I want to work with people who enjoy paying bills on time. I enjoy paying bills on time, if not early. It's just who I am, right? So building that avatar is going to make it so much easier to find the avatar, right? So especially when it comes to specific businesses and you're really diving into, okay, this is what we want to do. So the first thing I always do is build who's the perfect person to sell to. Second, where do they hang out? What are they doing? So there's a couple groups called Vistage, there's EO. Those are typically local networking groups with businesses that are doing well, like EO, you have to do $1 million in revenue just to be a member of, right? That's a good place to go fishing when it comes to sales. This other thing I look at is who's in my warm market. Far too many people focus on cold traffic. There are people you know, like, and trust, who know, like, and trust you, that will pay you for your expertise and your help. Like they don't have the time to do this. They don't want to be doing this. So look at that warm market and say, who do you know that has a product or service that's $30,000 plus lifetime value? Like, ask those questions and go for referrals and introductions. That's way easier than cold traffic, right? And then, so there's 4 questions, right? When it comes to prospecting. I actually have a worksheet. I'd be happy to give any of you guys if you want it. But there's 4 main questions you've got to answer to make prospecting ridiculously simple. The first one is, who do I contact? The second one is, what do I say? The third one is, how do I say it? Is it a phone call? Is it an email? Is it, I love snail mail. We send mail and it's amazing, right? People don't expect it. So how do you say it? And then the fourth one is, when do I contact them again? Most salespeople follow up on average between 3 and 7 times. That's it. And then they say, oh, it's a dead lead. Most buyers take 15 plus touches to make that buying decision. So there's a big gap. You're closing the people who are hot and in pain. Those are the easy ones to close, and keep doing it. But what we do is we recommend building out a sequence. Building out our sequence is 18 steps of, what am I going to say? How do I say it? When do I say it? Our sequence takes about 3 to 4 months, depending on weekends and all that other fun stuff. But we are following up around once a week, right? So it's constant. And that's what you've got to do in the sales process, is not send an email and expect them to say, ooh, I need you, right? I call it burn and turn. And you are going to spend a lot of time.
Yeah. Hey, Justin, we have, this might be a good time to swing into a question. So the question is, how are you demonstrating the value of your business before you lock in these $1 million contracts besides a testimonial? So this could be, this is a good question for you. How are you establishing that value? But also in general, how does a business establish value, maybe besides testimonials on a website?
So the first thing you got to do is build the relationship. People buy emotionally. They justify the decision intellectually, right? The first thing when I start working with people, when I get a prospect, I had one earlier today. I was like, listen, the first place we start is, do I like you? And do you like me enough to even do business together? Because if we don't, we're not going anywhere. Usually when it comes to demonstrating value, here's where people go wrong. Can I do it? I'm going to pull up the whiteboard. Is that all right?
Yeah. Let's do it.
Out of the way, Molly. All right. So here's where people go wrong in the sales process. And let me know if this is backwards. I can flip my camera. So you have a buyer and you have a seller, right?
Yep.
And can you see that all right?
Yes. Yeah, it looks good.
Okay. All right. And we call this affectionately the BS dance, because it's a bunch of BS, right? So the buyer, in their mindset, what are they trying to do?
They're trying to solve a problem.
They're trying to solve a problem. And what are they trained when it comes to salespeople?
To be resistant or try to get the cheapest, the lowest, right? I mean, they want something for the cheapest price, but also be resistant.
They're looking to disqualify you.
They're looking to disqualify. What they're doing is they're trying to protect themselves because they've been told their whole life that salespeople are sharks and we're out there to take advantage of them. So first, I want to tell you, one, it is your moral obligation to not sell anything that will not help your customer.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are selling something that is not good for them, stop it. That is rude. Don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
It is also your moral obligation to sell something that will solve their problems. Sales is not bad. Sales is great. I see sales as the most noble profession in the world.
I love it.
It's the world running. Sorry. I will get off my soapbox for this second. So the buyer starts, and I'm taking the bark off, they start by lying to the salesperson because they don't want to be taken advantage of. The first meeting, do they ever give you the true budget?
Mm-mm.
Do they ever even disclose the budget? No. Most of the time they don't. So they start with, I am going to hold my cards close to my vest and avoid being taken advantage of. What is the seller doing while the prospect is lying to us?
Don't know.
They're talking, yeah. They're talking their face off. They're trying to qualify, right? So we are trying to qualify based on a lie. We're trying to figure out, hey, is this a good fit? Can we truly help you? And they're holding their cards close to the vest, right? So the next step in the buyer's process, well, actually, let's go to sellers. The next step in the seller's process, we qualify, then what do? We got to present our crap. Like, we got to show them the goods, right? So we present. We present what we know. We present what we're good at. We give it all away. And we say, listen, this is it, right? This is the goods. So what does the seller do? And this is painful. They steal.
Mm.
They don't do it maliciously, but they take ideas, they take your thoughts, they take your processes, and they say, oh man, that's amazing. But we can't be mad because you cannot be mad at someone for doing something you did not tell them they couldn't do. Right? So the buyer steals, but they're really not stealing because the salesperson is presenting everything they know.
Yeah.
So after the seller presents, now it's time to do what?
Close.
The business. ABC, baby, right? So seller starts to close. What does the buyer typically do at this point?
Delay.
Delay? Exactly. Step one works so well, we're going to try it again. They're going to lie. They're going to say something like, I need to talk to my boss. I need to talk to my husband. I need to talk to my wife. I need to talk to the board. Now it's not the good time, right? Ever heard any of these? I mean, it happens all the time. So seller's trying to close. The buyer says, you know what? I got enough from the presentation. And this is the tricky part about presenting. You get enough from the presentation that you think you can solve the problem.
Mm.
Right? So you're like, oh my gosh, this is great. Oh, I can do this. I can do this. Great example. Once we had a IT guy comes trying to sell IT services. There's tons of them out there, sits down with us, has this big checklist, gives it to us and says, these are all the things that we see that are commonly wrong. And we took it to our IT guy and said, hey, could you check these out? Problem solved, right?
Yeah.
So that's one of the problems with presenting. You give them enough to think they can handle the problem. But the problem is your knowledge bank, what you know, is so much vaster, so much better than what you gave them. You gave them a little tiny slice of the pie and they think they got the whole thing. So you're doing a disservice by showing them everything. So next, what do we do after they say, hey, I've got to talk to XYZ, I'll get back to you next week, all that good stuff?
Well, you could either pressure them or just put them on the back burner and, you know, retouch
Make another appointment. Yeah.
Yeah.
Another appointment. I call it the 11th commandment in the sales playbook. Thou shalt follow up, right? And we start emailing and we call them and we reach out to them and we say, hey, I was thinking about you. How's it going? What happened? Right? Now, I never knew how easy it was to get into the witness protection program until I really understood sales. Because what do? They hide.
Yeah.
They disappear. And so this right here is the traditional sales process, right? This is the BS that we're going through. And when you go through it, the question was, how do I show value, right? The way to show value is by what you focus on. So what is the buyer focused on here?
The buyer is focused on, I guess, staying in control. I don't know what you'd say on that, but
Yeah.
price.
The main thing the buyer focuses on is the problem. Right?
Yes.
They've got an issue. They've got something they're trying to solve. They don't know what. Then what's the seller focused on?
Probably mostly closing, but if possibly the solution should be the focus.
Exactly. They're focusing on closing on their solution. So to make sales really easy, what you've got to do is get closing out of your mindset. Focus on helping them solve the problem. Because if both, you can either get the prospect to focus on buying your solution, which those are typically the clients that close fast and close easy. And you're like, man, why couldn't everybody be like that? Or you can focus on how do we solve their problem. People buy emotionally, they justify the decision intellectually. So if you start focusing on the problem with them and helping them figure out how to solve the problem, I'm telling you guys, it is never about price. Yes, price is a factor. Like if you're talking to someone who doesn't have money, it's not a good prospect, right? That comes to a qualification. So we've got to focus on the problem. And here's how we help people flip the switch. So,
Hey, Justin, right as you're preparing for that, and keep erasing there. I want to slide in some of these questions, and then we'll get to the flip side of what you're pointing out. Nicholas mentions basically, do you think it's crazy to give away your services? He's a customer experience consultant. Give away for free to build up some referrals and portfolio work. The problem is that doesn't feed the family. So how would you nail that question?
Exactly. That is the problem. And that is why I actually recommend not, when you're starting, The one thing you have is time. So let's sell that time. So here's how I positioned it when I was starting. I would tell people, listen, I'm new. I'm starting this business. So what I have right now is time. I am looking for 4 clients to work with. I am going to charge them. So Nicholas, in your mind, what is the monthly nut you've got to crack, right? Do you need $10,000? Is it 5,000? Whatever that is, start with what your personal family needs are. And then figure out how many clients do I want to meet that nut. So client dependency is something a lot of people underestimate. One thing I track very carefully is how dependent am I on one client for my income? Because if that one client goes away, so does my income. So my goal is, obviously the lowest amount possible is the goal, but my goal is to never have someone responsible for more than 10% of my annual income. Because if I lose 10%, if you lose 50%, ouch, right?
Yep.
So I would not give it away. I would go to people and I'd say, I'm getting started. I'm building out my systems. I am new, but this is my experience. This is why I'm an expert. So if you're willing to help me, I will serve you at the highest level possible. And let's say you need $5,000. You get 5 clients paying $1,000 a month. You hit your nut. You could literally spend an entire 8-hour day once a week working on that client's stuff. Your family's fed, you're working 40 hours a week. And every business owner knows, especially when you're getting started, you're working like 90 hours a week anyway. You still got another week, right? So don't give it away for free. Go out there and be candid. Transparency is one of my biggest core values. That's why I started out with my failed business as the story. Most people kind of shy away from, hey, this is where I failed. But I want you to know what I went through to know where I'm coming from. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's good. Thank you for that explanation. Hopefully it helped people. Let's dive into, so you just illustrated that, the traditional sales process is kind of one-sided and almost aggressive in nature. Tell us what your next evolution of the sales process.
So this is traditional sales is qualify, present, close. Qualify the prospect, present our crap, close them on buying it, right? So this is what I recommend. So you start with qualifying. Qualify them. Always qualify. But we do it on 3 very specific things. Number 1 is first and foremost, pain. Not what you can do for them, but what are they struggling with? What is holding them back? What are they trying to overcome? Second is budget. How much are they willing to invest to solve that problem? How much are they willing to invest to figure out how to move forward and reach their goals? And third,
hey, Justin, I have a question on that, which is, how hard would you suggest pushing to at least get a number or neighborhood? Because I do agree that, in the qualification process, when you're doing this initial research, you want to know. But if that prospect is not necessarily open with that number, how hard do you push for it?
Love the question. So in my opinion, by withholding price, you make everything about price. So that's one reason on my website, you will find my pricing. I will tell it to anyone. I charge $5K a month plus commission. That's what I charge. I got that from a book called Built to Sell. one of the most impactful books I've ever read in my life. I read it on Audible. It's 4-hour read, super easy business fable. John Warthrope, read it. Like if you want to build a company that operates without you, whether you're there or not, read that book. So one reason I would say share price is because when you go to Walmart, do you ask for a discount? Do you try to negotiate on anything? I do, just because I like to dicker, but I don't expect it. And fun hack, my favorite discount to ask for is, hey, do you have a nice guy discount? Like, I wasn't a dick. I wasn't rude. You'd be surprised how many people will give you an employee discount for being nice. So yeah, I'd always ask for budget. And if they push for price, I tell them. I try to tell them before we even get on the call, because
Qualification.
I want them to know what I'm charging. I want them to know what I'm charging, because then they can say, So for example, Russell Brunson, I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with him, ClickFunnels. He's great marketing training. So look into him if you haven't. One of the things he says is, holy rusted buckets, Batman. I just forgot it. Did you see that train?
Love it. You'll remember it and then you'll share it with us.
Exactly.
So Justin, can I qualify something here? I'm just curious. So when you're talking about qualification, you've got pain and you've got budget.
Yep.
If the person isn't willing to tell you what their budget is, that's when you tell them what your budget is so that they can continue the qualification
So
on their side?
Not necessarily.
So
I try to
force them.
What's that?
So then how do you force, I'm going to say force, I would never force somebody, but you really need to know whether they have a budget that works for you. By you giving them your price, they can at least say, well, you're outside of my price range. But if you're trying to get their price and they're not forthcoming with their price, what's your suggestion?
Exactly. So I would definitely give them your price, right? And I try to give my price. I try to make sure people know what I'm charging before I ever get on the sales call, right? Because some people withhold that information wanting to build up the sales call, which, granted, maybe I'm wrong. I've been wrong in the past, but my opinion is I want it to become something they strive for, not something they do just because. And I sell a product, not a service. Tons of people argue with me. No, Justin, what you sell is a service. Like, yes, it is if you look at it that way, but it's all around the terminology you use. So again, Built to Sell, read that book. You'll understand more about what I'm talking about there. Russell Brunson, the reason I brought that up, I remembered, you were right. He has a coaching program he charges $50,000 a year for, right? Everybody knows it. They strive to be in it. They strive to get into it. They want to make the money to be able to afford it. So that's one of the benefits of sharing price, is if someone can't afford you right now, at least they have a benchmark to work towards, right?
Makes sense.
So we qualify pain, budget, and then the last one is, how do they make decisions? Now, for the longest time, I thought the decision-making process was all about getting them to make a yes or no decision. It is not. The decision-making process is, Who's going to be involved in that decision? Is it a board of directors? Is their accountant? Is their mother-in-law's uncle a financial advisor that they work with, right? Who's involved? Where do they make the decision? When are they getting together? So as I'm going through this, it lends this process works for any sales, but it's a lot easier to work on sales that are over, say, $1,000. So like with a SaaS product, if it's $100 subscription, you're golden. But if you're selling a $50 e-com thing, this really is overkill. Is that fair?
Yeah.
So the second step in the sales process, as I see it, is, whoa, I was looking at the other side, is we close. So now we qualify them, then we close them. And what we close them on is first, that they have a pain we can solve. Second, they have money to solve that pain. And the third thing we close them on is we can operate within their decision-making process. So if you focus on qualifying them, then close that. So you're saying you're dealing with this, you've got this much that you're willing to invest, and this is how you make decisions. Well, would it make sense if I put together a proposal on how we would help you solve that problem? Right? Now we present. Now we present how we're going to solve the problem. It's not that we're withholding our experience, our software, our products, or anything. It's that we want to make sure if we're going through the time to put together a proposal, they're qualified, right? So that's how, if you focus on pain budget decision, everybody's favorite channel in the world is WIIFN. What's in it for me, right? That's what we're all listening to constantly. If you present in this manner, it is going to make it so much easier for you to be seen as an expert, because everything is not about you or me. It's about them. The most important thing you can do in a sales call is shut the hell up. Listen to them. What are they struggling with? What do they need help with? Why are they struggling with it? How have they tried to solve it already? Did that work? What did you do next? How much did that cost you? How has that affected your personal life? So 70% of a sales call, your prospect should be talking. 30% of the call, you should be talking. And 70% of your 30 should be asking questions. If you just change that, if you change how much you talk and how many questions you answer, you will close more business. I've actually seen it happen a lot.
Wow. Justin, this has been awesome, man. This has been amazing. You know, we only have a few more minutes, everyone. So any other last questions, you know, feel free to jump in. Any questions on, you know, the things that Justin has covered, any general entrepreneurial questions, anything of that nature. You know, we only have a few more minutes, and so glad that you've stuck with us. So, you know, definitely some great nuggets here. Julian, I know that you had a question on the qualification, but I think we spent about 10 minutes on that. So hopefully that answered your question on, you know, just spending more time qualifying the lead. Hopefully that answered the questions. But anyone, feel free to unmute and jump in and say hi and ask a question or a comment.
And hey, Nick, is it all right if I give them a link to download that workbook
Yeah. Yeah. You can shoot it into the chat right here.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So if you just go to prospectingdfy.com, that's my workbook we built to share how we help companies build out their systems. So what I sell is time. I'm a done for you service. I'm here to help people. So I give away everything I do for free in hopes that eventually you'll say, man, this is awesome. This content is crazy. I'd rather have you do it than me figure it out. And that's how I get clients. So total transparency. If you want my process, please download it and reach out to me, Facebook, LinkedIn. I'm not on Twitter, but anything like that.
So we have a question. How are you handling the, essentially the COVID-19 social distance situation in your business?
Love that question. So yes, it's affected me greatly. I've lost a couple clients because they've lost all their revenue, right? And that's part of life, guys. I talked about client dependency, right? I'm really glad I had those clients to lose.
Yep.
So that's the first thing I'd recommend. Focus on client dependency as you're moving forward and make sure you're not too heavily focused on one thing. So one thing I'm doing, I try to get out of the box as much as possible. So there's a company, and actually links to all the tools I use are in that download if you want them. There's a company called Send Out Cards. I don't have to go to the post office or anything like that. And I send physical cards to my clients and to our prospects. And they even do, I've got to show they do big cards. Have fun. So Send Out Cards. I use a software called CoVideo, and CoVideo is amazing. So one thing I'll do, actually, I don't have time. I'll just show you a very quick example on my email here. Sent. So share video. There we go. All right. So CoVideo, it took me about a minute to shoot, upload, and put this in an email. And what I'll do is I'll write my prospects or client's name on the board. Like if I'm trying to get someone's attention, you cannot use software to write on a whiteboard and have it like this, right? So I'll send a video that says, Nick with Founders Live, and then I'm here talking, and it's like, that is obviously meant for me.
Right.
I'm going to click on it. So that's one of the tools we've found that's helped a lot when it comes to getting in front of more people. The other thing I would highly recommend all of you to do is prospect. Build a system for prospecting. Far too many businesses, does your business currently rely on more than 50% referral for growth? Right?
Yeah.
Which, when you're getting started, that's freaking awesome, right? Don't get me wrong, that's amazing. It's highly unsustainable. So while you're getting those referrals, build a prospecting sequence. That's what this workbook is all about, building the prospecting sequence. So build a prospecting sequence and just march with it. I'll show you another tool I use.
Hey, quick question. In terms of address and mailing your physical cards, do you have problems with those addresses? Or, a lot of people are in flux now and working from home.
Yeah, sometimes I do. So I'll send it just to the company office. Whoever I'm targeting, I'll send it to their office. Most of the time, which it's kind of crazy with COVID right now, they'll get it eventually, which is not ideal, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
And the other thing, I think it was Shelley who said, just ask. Yeah, most people will. And what I tell them is, let's say I'm having a conversation and I'll say, hey, I like to do like thank you cards and just little cards to keep in touch. Would you mind giving me an address to send those to?
I can't even tell you a day that somebody hasn't been willing to give me an address. We are fixated in our mind at what we don't think we would be willing to give out, so therefore they wouldn't possibly.
Yeah.
I'm sending out birthday cards. Can I get your mailing address? Give it to you every time. The odd person says, I'd like you to send it to my work address, but it's still an address. And as you said, it doesn't matter whether it gets there late. It only matters that they get it.
Yeah, because you know how many cold emails people get a day?
A lot.
A lot. You know how many cold letters they get a day?
So few.
So few. So like that's one of the things we do. The other tool I use, I know we're out of time. It'll take 2 seconds. Is called Lemlist. And Lemlist does so much cool behind the scenes stuff to let you automatically send prospecting emails. Here, I'll show you. If anybody wants in my sequence just to funnel hack me, let me know. Shoot me your information. I'll add you. So this is the first email they get, second email, and then we're split testing these emails.
Wow.
Right? And so this 3-step sequence, what we're doing is we're looking for, are they opening my emails and did they click on links? If they did, we put them into our sequence that has phone calls, snail mail, email, social media, lumpy mail. Send someone a package and they will always open it. And so if you've got a high lifetime value of a client, you can invest $1,000 in getting a client. Does that make sense, guys?
Yeah, this is great. Hey, everyone, I know that we're pretty much out of time. I'll stick around for another handful of minutes. And, but if you need to go, obviously we're probably very busy and you got other calls and meetings. Thank you so much. Thank you, Justin, for this Founders Live Conversations. This was absolutely so rich in content. Yes. So good. So good. Really appreciate it. And, we hit right on the sales, needs and processes. That was perfect. So thank you so much.
Yeah. And I'm totally candid, guys. Reach out. Like if I can help you, if you have questions, I want to help because I know a rising tide lifts all ships. So I'm here to serve.
Great. Well, thank you, everyone. And yeah, if anyone wants to stick around and just, chat for a few minutes, I will keep this on, but, feel free to take off. So thank you again, Justin. And this was Founders Live Conversations. We do this every week. So, look forward to next week. We have Elizabeth Scallon from Seattle, and she is a part of WeWork Labs and just awesome woman in Seattle.
So it'll be a great conversation.